Good morning, people. It's, I don't know, 5 a.m. somewhere, 5:30 a.m. Anyways, I got inspired right now because I started thinking about a lot of shit. Normally, I get inspiration and all that, like, after I sleep, a good night's sleep. And I wake up in the morning, it's like something hits me, like inspiration, motivation. I don't know. I'm a morning person. So, anyways, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I started looking back to everything, right? I started putting things together. I'm a puzzle solver, whatever you want to call it. I started wondering why my family, because when my dad was very abusive, man, he was a good man. Don't get me wrong, he worked hard. But at the same time, he was an alcoholic and he was an abuser. He couldn't control his anger. He couldn't, I swear, he was possessed. So now I believe he was. You know why? Because I started thinking about these karmics, right? And what's so sad is that it was his own sister, his own family, on his family side doing this shit. This is what's the sad part, on the Puerto Rican side. The first time I was like abused, I was probably like 5 years old, from what I remember. Everything about five, something, I don't know what it is about the age 5, but a lot of shit trauma happened to me at 5. It was the first time I ever got hit or spanked, and I was like surprised, appalled, shocked, that I was gonna that I got beat like that, at that age. And I can't even remember for what. I just know that I cried a lot, and when I cried a lot, my mother told me to stop being a crybaby. I was too much of a fucking crybaby. And that stuck with me for a long time, so I never cried. Every time I got my ass whooped, I wouldn't cry. I'd hold it in, and I'd get my ass whooped more and more and more for not crying because, people that are abusing you, they want you to cry. They want you to feel that fucking pain. And when you don't cry, it pisses them off. So unfortunately, I would get hit even harder and more times until my mother would finally step in and tell him to stop because he was going to fucking kill us. He would just lose his mind sometimes in the act of hitting us with belts, with whatever, his hand, his belts, the metal part of the belts. Welts, he wouldn't be able to sit down, go to school, barely being able to sit on the seat in school, in the chair. So when I was thinking back to all this, I started thinking about these stupid karmics, right? I met them one time, these cousins, the ones that stole the inheritance. What's so sad is it's my dad's sister. And like these guys have always been frauds because my mother never liked them. They came to meet us. They came from Wisconsin, Milwaukee or whatever. And they came, right? And we've met them, right? And I remember seeing the guy, he portrayed himself to be a pastor or a reverend, my uncle, which is my dad's sister's husband. Okay, this is on my dad's side, the Puerto Rican side. My aunt, this evil bitch, I didn't know they were witches, though. I didn't believe in that shit. The first time I met them, I must have been 13, 14, around there, I think. I'm not too sure. I met my cousins. We were happy to see them. They had a daughter that was sick, and she died years later. And they were doing, donations and all kinds of shit, which is probably just a fraud, even after she died. I don't know, and I hate to say it like that, but they were fraud back then, trying to get donations for a lot of bullshit. They've always been lazy, is what I think, and not wanting to work for their money. Asking for donations, asking for all kinds of bullshit, things to attract money, using any little reason. And I believe that that's the day that bitch put a spell. They put a spell on me. I think that's when that bitch fucking looked at me and fucking decided to fucking use me as the bait. And from there on, I think it's been since back then, and I didn't even know it. I would have never figured this out if I didn't see my cousin's face on the platform. And family recognizes family. Blood recognizes blood. See, she's a cousin. Her mother's my cousin, first cousin. So she's the daughter. Okay, now, I never met her in my life, but I recognize the blood. You know why? Because she looks just like my daughter, which is weird. I thought she was my daughter because I hadn't seen my daughter in years. So I thought, wow, my daughter changed a lot. She's like a witch. But I thought these people really brainwashed my kid, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And I had to look at her and watch her, but she brought a lot of emotional feelings. And I got I healed because I was going through trauma about family and stuff. And so when I saw her, believe it or not, it released some of my stress and some of my anxieties and some of my sadness, believe it or not, by seeing a family member. But no, even though it's so twisted, even knowing that this bitch was behind the whole thing too, or raised to hate me without even knowing me. This was so sad is that it still went generation after generation of hating the next generation, hating me and hating my family without my siblings or my kids without even knowing us. Just because their mother and their grandmother had fucking done this shit to us, and it just kept repeating, and we would have never figured it out. I wouldn't have. If it wasn't for God telling me to get on YouTube or the ancestors telling me to get on fucking YouTube and do videos, there's a reason for all this shit that happened. There's a reason why I started doing these videos, you know? At the time I thought, you know, it's to save my life, but then I started thinking about it. It's like God like opened up the storyline for me, because how was I going to figure this shit out? If I've never met these people but once, they would have been never on my mind to think that they were the ones behind this whole fucking charade, you know, this whole fucking scheme. I would have never thought of it. I would have never put it together if it wasn't for God telling me to get on, or my ancestors or my higher self telling me to get on fucking social media and doing this video. And I didn't know. I thought it was just to tell my story, but I didn't know that eventually I was going to end up solving my own story, or solving the whole situation for myself. Because who the hell? I don't talk to nobody. Family turned their back on me. Who's going to tell me the story? How would I figure this shit out? So when they came to visit us and we were kids and stuff like that, my mom didn't really care for them. My mom didn't really like them, you know? And I just thought that my mom was just being mean, because my mom could be really mean sometimes. But she didn't like witches. She was against witches. She always fought against witches. She always spot them, and she would go to war with them. And she wouldn't care, and she'd put them in their place, and she'd tell them a lot of shit, you know? My mother was a really brave soldier, a warrior in her own sense for Christ. Nobody was going to tell her anything different, and nobody was going to change her fucking mind when it came to her religious beliefs, and she believed in Jesus. That's all she knew. She believed in God and Jesus, and she didn't have to go to church, and she didn't give a shit what anybody had to say. And we were Catholic, right? But we weren't practicing Catholics. But we were raised Catholic and baptized Catholic. So anyways, but they weren't... in the strictness that they should have been, they weren't. Because, I mean, my dad was an alcoholic. It was just such a dysfunctional family. And the reason why is I believe that these people put a spell on my father. His own sister probably put a spell on her brother to take fortune from them. You know, because my father could never get out of the fucking hole. He was always working 2-3 jobs, and could never get out of the fucking hole. He was like he was cursed. Ever since he was like 5 years old, he worked hard for his family, selling things, you know, gum, candy, food, whatever, in Puerto Rico. And so this sister knew it, man. You knew that her brother had something good about him. And my father never lost his faith in God. Even though he was abusing physically, he just believed in God and Jesus. And I know my father was a good person. He just, something was wrong. I believe that he had some fucking thing attached to him as a kid, some demonic fucking force or some bullshit, or he had some demons that he didn't want to deal with, unfortunately. You know, when he would drink, they'd come out. And we get the fucking raw end of that shit. So, and plus he wanted sons, and he never had a son. He only had daughters. So he'd whoop our asses, man, you know? So anyways, I laugh now, but it wasn't funny at the time, you know? But I can laugh now because I could see that, I saw that my father cared and loved us. And I know it sounds weird and twisted, even though we were being abused. But he tried so hard for us, and he was so frustrated. Literally just frustration of that third grade education that the man had. And trying to make it in the world, trying to support 9 people is a lot. It was a lot for him, and I see it now, you know? And I respect that. But as a kid, acting up and not listening and, you know, getting my ass whooped for every little thing that I did, you know, because he took out his frustration on us from his childhood, you know, it were wounds that he was dealing with since he was a child that he took out on us. But at the time, how the fuck are we going to know? We're kids. We don't know what the fuck's going on. We just look at him like he's mean and fucking abusive, and we're scared of him, terrified of his ass. Every time he'd come home from work, we fucking run. We didn't even want to be around him. We hardly ever had a conversation with the man. The man would lock himself up in the room and didn't want to be bothered because he was so tired. Then my mother would add stress to his ass, you know, and it didn't help anything. My mother was constantly picking at him too, causing him to fucking blow up. And then we get the fucking shit into the stick. But anyways, I'm not making excuses for abuse. When I tell you that I look at every perspective, I looked at what made him this way, how he grew up in his childhood, why he thinks like this, the generation he grew up in. He went to the Korean War. There's a lot of dynamics behind the mental abuse that he was going through with the PTSD and his own childhood trauma. Okay, it took me a long time to see that, trust me. Anyways, I believe these karmics, these cousins, were putting spells on him and our family, causing misfortunes and abuse to happen in our family. I know they were. I look back to it now, I could see that this shit was unreal, and my mother was constantly fighting witches, and she didn't know where it was coming from. Maybe she did know, but she would go to spiritualists and people like that to fight this shit. But maybe she was going to the wrong people, and they were probably influencing her. You know, like some people, like they say, if you don't know which ones you go to, maybe my mom was going to the wrong ones. You know, I don't know. I never went. I know that she always did limpias. We always had a cleansing, whether it was an enema or fucking the egg deal. You know, the whole limpia, the huevo and shit. And other things, you know. My mom believed in herbs and spices and things like that. My mom was like a herbalist or whatever you call it, herbalistic. I don't know. She was very into her yerbas. Her yerbas were all we fucking did. In the wintertime, we drank nothing but canela, our manzanilla, what's the other one? Yerba buena. You know, just all the yerbas. That's all we grew up on, yerbas. And we never got sick. And we were very fortunate never to really have to go to the doctor or anything like that because we didn't have the money. Back then, we didn't have insurance like that, like they do now. Medicaid and stuff like that. Now, I think that they did a curse, and I think they sacrificed my sister. I have a 6-year-old sister that died at 6, okay? I was 17 years old, and she was 6 years old, and she died of, back then they didn't know what it was. It was called, they considered it encephalitis, swelling of the brain. 2 other people on the block got it, and it was a mosquito bite. She basically swam in like water that wasn't like, it was a day or 2 days old, the water. And so, unfortunately, there was mosquitoes that were set out on our block. I don't know, they said they came from overseas because I'm from a military base, Fort Bliss. In 1986, something got released. I don't know, the government did this or what. Supposedly it came from Saudi Arabia. I don't know. Back in the 80s, 86, and my sister was, I guess, attacked by a mosquito. And she went through like 2 weeks of a week of fever. My mom didn't know what to do. My mom didn't know how to take care of her right. I mean, my mom was working too at the same time, so she left it upon me and my other sister, which were like 17 and 15. We didn't know how to fucking take care of her. We knew she was vomiting and having diarrhea, and we had no clue that her fever was over 104, 105 for like a week. My mother blamed me and my other sister for her death. But in reality, it was my mother's and my father's fault because of the fact that they didn't take her to the emergency room sooner, you know, than later. So that death took a toll on my family. Because she was 6 years old, no parent should have to bury their child. No parent, that's not normal. It should be the other way around. The children should be burying their parents, okay? That death took a toll on our family. Basically, it ended whatever closeness, whatever bond that we had left, it was destroyed. It just was destroyed. That was it. A lot of blaming. My father blamed my mother blamed my father. They started hating each other. They slept separate bed, one on the couch, one in the bedroom. They completely just isolated themselves. They couldn't talk. They were abusing each other physically. My father went to jail for hitting my mother over the head with a cast iron skillet, cracked her head open. So he went to fucking jail, and my mother left him after that and went to Iowa. And I just look back to all this misfortune, all the stuff that happened, you know, and I really believe that it was probably due to these karmics and their witchcraft. The witchcraft that, because, you know, people are like, yeah, but, you know, witchcraft, I guess, can affect people's thinking. And especially if my father was an alcoholic on a low vibrational state of mind, and we were struggling, and the faith wasn't there. Like, I guess my father didn't have enough faith or didn't know what to do, how to protect himself, and my mother was probably not doing it right either. And it's a sad case, but this is what happens when you're not protected or you don't know how to protect yourselves against witchcraft. And this is what this advice is it's always, and you got to be real careful who you go to for advice and for help, because sometimes these people can work against you also. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, I've come to realize that the best way for me is that I stay prayed up, and I just, my faith is unbelievable. I don't know, maybe just because being chosen, or because I believe so strongly in God, and maybe because God spared me because of all the shit that I've been through as a child and my family's been through. And I told him I wanted to break this curse. I told him at a young age, when I was 17, 18 years old, that I wanted to be the one to break this family curse. And I don't know why I said it. What the hell did I know at that age? And did I know that I was going to have to go through hell and back to break that curse? Still trying to break that curse. Well, I probably already have, but now the blessings are going to start to come in. You understand? 50 years or so of breaking curses. And finally, I get to see the goodness and the blessings out of after all the suffering and all the hardships that were endured. I earned this spot. I have earned my spot. And that's what I mean. Sometimes people don't understand that people have to earn their spot in life. You just can't take from somebody, and you can't just proceed off of somebody else's reputation or characteristics. You have to earn it. You just can't take it. It's earned, and I earned my spot. So my advice to people is to be careful with this witchcraft and shit like that. Even with some of these tarot card readers, you have to be careful that they're not using your energy, using you as a pawn for themselves to advance in life. Not everybody's like this, okay? I'm not talking because I have a good 20, 30 of them that I really enjoy. But there is some that work on the wicked side and some that like to do dark magic. And so be careful out there when you're listening to these people and because you see, coming from experience, I can listen to these women and I can spot them out and I can know what's going on. But people that are inexperienced, when you're up against these people, you don't realize that the dark forces that are behind it and stuff. And if you're not equipped or experienced to fight this shit or to acknowledge it or to recognize it, and without being attacked, or sending it back, and your faith isn't strong enough with God, and within yourself, and call out for Jesus. Jesus is the main one that is going to come down here and take them all out, and has, So the battle has been won. You just have to pray up and keep your faith, and don't get discouraged, and don't believe everything that you see or hear. Sit with it for a while, pray on it for a while. Don't give your answer for things for a while. Think about it. It's not bad to think about something for a few days, for weeks, before you go further. Plus, ask our Father if it's all right to make that move if you're unsure, and wait for the response. There's always synchronicities. There's always through numbers. There's always through signs, through people talking. You'll hear a conversation that you don't even know these strangers, and they'll say something in the conversation. There's a message for you. That happens to me many, many times. So I leave that with you guys. This early bird catches the worm. And tell you guys that I love you guys and I appreciate everything about you guys. And even if you don't like me, I really don't care. But I do wish good upon people in the world, even towards my enemies. So may God help you guys. May God bless everybody. And I send, blessings to those that are using the blessings in the right way, not against people. So have a good Sunday. Amen. Start the day today praising the Lord for another day that we get to breathe, live, sleep, eat, rejoice with our families, friends, children. Praise the Lord for that. Okay? Always give gratitude to God and His Son, Jesus. Okay? And I leave you that. Shalom, shalom, amen. May God be with you all day long, every day, for the rest of your life. Amen.